YouTube. We are live on my personal channel on Facebook, so if you want to watch that, which is a little behind the scenes, and then obviously this, which is way more professional, we're going to be talking about the number one thing that you should be doing. You know, the easiest way to go through business is just be busy. And that's what I thought. You know, not only that, I just wanted to make sure that the connection is good. I always thought that being busy is good. You know, I always thought answering the emails, being at someone else's time was the way to go. And then you started reading a couple of books out there. You know, I kind of left it in my Instagram post today, which was the number one thing that Gary Keller talks about is every single business has a number one thing that they should be focusing on. There is also a book out there by Brian Tracy. Highly recommend you go check it out. It's called Eat That Frog. It's very short. And essentially he just goes into it and he says, listen, if you have an ugly frog, every single morning right in front of you, and you have to eat that frog, every other frog after that isn't going to be that big of a deal. So essentially, you eat the ugliest frog. The ugliest frog could be that project you've been pushing out, the sales calls that you need to make, the people you need to follow up with. You know, I track all the people that I'm following up with. You know, I make, calls and contacts and appointments and things like that. There's a bunch of people I didn't want to call today, and I just said, dude, you got to do it. You got to do it. That's the number one thing that you should be doing. So there's two types of actually getting business. So the first type is passive, which is you kind of send out an email or you wait. That's how I really started and thought business happened, is that you waited for the business to come to you. And then I started readjusting and saying, well, you know, business is not really coming to me. I can't really control when someone is going to email me. I can't really control when they're looking to buy or sell. So I started going into the active, which is outbound prospecting, outbound follow-up, outbound marketing, which is targeting and going after you instead of waiting. You know, this right here is very passive. This is fun, this is engaging, this is exciting, but this isn't my number one thing. My number one thing is outbound calls, and that happens from 9 to 10 a.m. Every single day. I have nothing that's ever scheduled there, and honestly, this is going to be one of those that I'm not going to schedule in between too, because producing the content, not only do I like, but it also kind of just puts you above the rest. You know, if someone is saying, should I work with Charles or should I work with Bob? And Bob's not producing any content, they're gonna work with Charles. But both Bob and Charles, they have to be reaching out. That is the number one thing. So in any business, there's always, here's the best way to put it, is that if we're majoring in minor things, so that's obviously the title of the video, majoring in minor things. So minor things are answering an email, you know, returning phone calls, returning text messages. That would be, you know, hanging out at the water cooler and just starting drama or talking about drama, or going for lunch meetings when you don't really need to be going for lunch meetings. You know, all these things that just add up over time. And then once you start adding up that over time and no business is coming in, you're thinking, well, is it the marketplace? Is it my approach? Is it what I'm doing? It's all about what you're doing. Okay, so the 80-20 rule, which was an Italian mathematician, you know, Pareto, I think was his name. One of the coolest names, let's be honest for a second there. So it's the Pareto principle, which is 80% of the results that happen, the outcomes, are generated by 20% of the activity. So in other words, and he noticed that everywhere. He said that 20% of his crops yield 80% of 20% of his crops yielded 80% of his harvest. He also said that 20% of the people had 80% of the money. He said that, you know, so there's 20% of what we do yield 80% of all of our income, all of our business, all of our revenue. What's that 20%? Well, you know, Les Brown said it correctly, which is the things that you don't want to do. Les Brown said, if you do what's easy, your life is going to be hard. If you do what's hard, life is going to be easy. And it's a fact. There's the 4 phone calls that I wanted to get to this morning and got to this morning, I didn't want to make. Those are the calls that I wanted to avoid, not do. But those are the eat that frog, as Brian Tracy talks about, or as Gary Keller talks about. That's the number one thing. In our business, there's always a number one thing. It's not accounting, it's not marketing, it's sales, it's converting. It's actually outbound lead generation. That's really what it comes down to. This is something that was never actually discussed with me. When I started in 2009, it was kind of like, just put out ads. Hopefully someone will call you. And if nobody calls you, then, put out more ads. And I was like, well, I can't control who's going to call me. And I didn't know. I was totally just had no idea how to actually bring in business. And then when business came in, I didn't know how to convert. But if on a daily basis, you do the exact same thing that generates you 80% of the results, you will be successful, okay? In real estate, it's obviously outbound prospecting. That's what it comes down to. In a restaurant, it could be actually marketing, or it could be advertising. I don't know what it is for your business, but this is for anyone, and then we could even talk about leading up to that. What are the things leading up to the number one thing? The number one thing for obviously real estate is sales calls. But if I don't go to the gym, my sales calls are not going to be that good. If I don't have a good breakfast, my sales calls are not going to be that good. So it's getting pumped up going into the sales calls, which is as important as anything else. It's not like you just walk into work and then you just start making calls. It's not like you walk into work and then you're on. It's a Monday. It was just Father's Day yesterday. How many people are walking into work and be like, yeah, let's roll. Let's go out and start making some sales calls. Let's go out and start do some outbound prospecting. Let's go out and start doing some lead follow-up, some lead generation. It doesn't really happen. You have to get in the mood. You have to get pumped. I have an iPad, which is right behind you, right behind the cameras. And on there, I have all the music. I have soft classical music when I want to get into the zone. And that's always later in this afternoon. And then I have, 90s alternative, which gets me pumped up. Start making the calls. Once I do that, I feel like I actually not conquered the day, but I did enough during that day. If you do that, and Gary Keller talked about it, he said, because there's two types. There's the first type is that you go out and you get business. The second type is you service the business, okay? Every single entrepreneur goes through the roller coaster. The roller coaster is, I have a lot of business, I have so much business, I don't know what to do, and you stop lead generating, and then it starts going down. Okay, when we were in that right there because we had so much going on, and then once you start trailing off, you literally dip and have to come back up. To come back up, it's going to take probably about a week and a half to get right back into what you were doing successfully, to bring in all the business that you were servicing. So you need to time block, as they talk about in probably one of the best books that I've read in a while. Where you time block, and essentially it's called Deep Work by Cal Newport. Highly recommend you check it out. But essentially you time block, say an hour, hour and a half. If you're a new agent, it's probably all day because you have nothing else going on. Like previewing property, that's such a passive way to get business. Going to open houses. Yeah, you need to preview the inventory, but let's be honest, if you have no one working with you, you're not previewing anything. So the first thing is you have to time block. Then you have to say that religiously is something that I'm going to be doing every single day. There's going to be no appointment, no inspections, no closings that come in between that 1 hour. Literally, my phone stays on airplane mode when I'm making phone calls, because if it's not, I'm tempted to potentially answer a text, answer an email, make a phone call that I'm not actually expecting. So during this time, one of the biggest time blocks is your number one thing. After that, you could do whatever. You could service, you can return all the calls, return all of your emails, anything after that. And the reason that I'm actually so passionate about this is because if you don't want to do the roller coaster of entrepreneurship or even real estate, you have to block that time out. And usually early in the morning, people reserve that for minor things. And that's the title of the video, is if you reserve it for minor things, or if you don't have a calendar ready for outbound prospecting, outbound calls, outbound follow-up, lead gen, there's no reason to be in a business. There has to be, I'll give you the example. I was at the, actually it was Ryan Serhant. Ryan Serhant put on actually a pretty good, presentation. And he was talking about the 3 things he does every single day. He starts with the CFO role, which is finances. Then he goes into the COO. He just handles things. This is before work even starts. The COO role, but he said the most important is the CEO role. The CEO role is essentially saying, okay, where am I going to get business? CFO, COO, which is handling the business, and you do that before you even go to work. And then once you arrive at work, he turns into CEO mode, and he says, where's my next deal? Where's my next building? Where's my next new development? And he goes through that every single day and does it every single day. It's monotonous, it's boring, it's not exciting, it's not sexy. But that's the thing, is that if you leave that as a variable, if you leave that as, well, maybe I'll get to it, or I don't know where my next business is going to come, that's exactly how it's going to be. I know from experience, because that's how I was. I literally didn't know where my next deal was going to come from. I didn't know what I was going to do when I came into work every single day. And it's easy not to know what you're going to do. It's easy to literally sit in a chair and just say, well, it's the marketplace, or it's my buyers, or it's my sellers, or it's the agents, or it's the co-op. It's easy to say it's them when in fact, what are you doing right when you get into work? Okay? First half of the day, focus on lead gen. Second half of the day, service that lead gen. Close the lead gen. At 12 o'clock, I'm going to be out of the office to about 5. I'm going to be rolling around, getting purchase applications, checks. I'm going to be doing another Facebook Live. We're also putting on another apartment, so I have to go and take photos of that. So that's the second half of my day. Anything before that is that deep work, as Cal Newport talks about it. So hopefully this helps. If you major in minor things, Les Brown has talked about it, is you're literally going to have a challenging job. Leave the variables to when you meet with a client and they ask you an objection. Leave the variables to when it's a tough marketplace, when you're going against another agent. Don't leave the variables to your morning, okay? And then this is the last thing on it, which is when you're actually doing the lead gen, when you're actually calling for business, is that it's going to be tough. It's not going to be fun. You're not going to want to do it. Consistency is everything. All right, consistency is everything. So hopefully this helped. Obviously, this is BPIU, which is essentially something that I never actually had when I was starting out in real estate. There was some training when I went to Halstead, and they had good training, but agents never told me this is what you do every single day, or this is how you get business. I had no idea. I'm like, how do these big guys get so much business? So they get the business, and then they have systems in place. They get more business, they have systems in place. They get more business, they have systems in place, and they keep on they just replicate that. But they do it every single day when they're bored, they're tired, they're hungover, they don't want to do it. It's bad weather, the marketplace is bad, there's financial or relationship problems. They just keep on doing it. They just churn it out. So if this helped, obviously leave your comments below if you had any questions. We're going to be going live on BPIU, obviously on the YouTube or on personal Facebook. Pretty much every single day we have a different show. We have sellers, we have buyers, we have hot topics, and then this is for the agents. And for I think one of the questions I'm going to answer is, should I get into real estate? That's been one of the major questions that I've been getting, because it looks great on TV, it looks so fun, it looks so exciting, and it's so easy to get your license. Should I actually get into real estate? I'll be answering that probably later on. If you guys have any questions, leave in the comments below. Anything you want me to cover, obviously leave in the comments below. Subscribe to the video. Talk to you guys soon. Enjoy your Monday.